Ukraine suddenly launched drone attacks on the Russian capital, Moscow, and several critical locations in the surrounding region during the night. In the hours connecting the night to the early morning, the silence that had dominated the city was suddenly broken by a series of explosions. The blasts, which were heard at short intervals, suggested that the attack was not directed at a single location and that multiple targets were being struck within the same period of time. The fact that attacks occurred simultaneously in different parts of the city raised tensions among both Russian officials and local residents. At the same time, reports indicated that security measures had been increased and that airspace and transportation activity had been temporarily restricted in some areas. Immediately after the attacks, numerous videos were published on Russian and Ukrainian Telegram channels. The footage showed thick clouds of smoke covering the sky, flames visible from a distance, and flashes of light following the explosions. In some videos, the smoke appeared to remain in the air for a long time, while sirens were reportedly heard throughout the night in certain areas. However, it is important to remember that footage shared on social media during wartime cannot always be independently verified in terms of time, location, or content. Even so, the large number of videos filmed from different locations strengthened claims that the attack had spread across a wide area. The attacks were reported to have damaged refineries, logistics centers, and various storage facilities. A Wildberries logistics center and warehouse located in the city of Kotovsk in the Tambov region was reportedly targeted by unmanned aerial vehicles. During the same night, information also emerged about explosions in the Tver and Vladimir regions. However, the most striking footage of the night came from the city of Elektrostal. Facilities belonging to Wildberries in this area near Moscow were reportedly damaged and heavy smoke was seen covering the sky after the attack. Footage shared from Elektrostal appeared to show columns of smoke visible from several kilometers away. The intensity of the explosions led to assessments that the facilities may have suffered more than superficial damage. In a statement issued by the Wildberries press service, the company confirmed that drones had targeted its logistics centers in Kotovsk and Elektrostal near Moscow during the night. This statement was considered an important indication that the attack was not limited to military installations, but also included large storage and distribution centers allegedly connected to military logistics. Following the attacks, the Ukrainian president stated that the operations had been effective in several directions. In his statement, he said, "Today, our long-range sanctions were effective in three directions: on Russian territory, in our temporarily occupied territories, and at sea." He continued by saying that two important logistics facilities in the Moscow and Tambov regions, located approximately 700 kilometers from the front line, had been damaged. According to the Ukrainian side, these facilities were used to supply certified components for the production of unmanned aerial vehicles and navigation equipment. It was also claimed that an oil facility had been damaged. In addition, Ukraine stated that attacks against targets in the Sea of Azov, the Black Sea, and temporarily occupied Crimea had also been successful. The Ukrainian government described these operations as a response to Russian attacks against Ukrainian cities, civilian infrastructure, and residential communities. There were also various claims that air defense systems had been activated throughout the night and that some unmanned aerial vehicles had been intercepted before reaching their targets. Russian sources claimed that a large number of drones had been neutralized, while Ukrainian sources stated that several targets had been successfully struck. However, not all of this information has been independently verified. For this reason, it is currently impossible to establish a complete and definitive picture of how many drones were shot down, how many reached their targets, and how extensive the damage was. Air defense systems are normally designed to respond quickly to threats coming from the air. However, a number of environmental and technical factors can make their mission significantly more difficult. Small unmanned aerial vehicles moving at low speeds may sometimes be confused by certain radar systems with birds, civilian objects, or environmental interference. Detecting targets with a low radar cross-section can be far more difficult than detecting larger aircraft or missiles. In addition, unmanned aerial vehicles flying at low altitude can remain outside radar coverage because of trees, tall buildings, hills, and terrain obstacles. In areas close to city centers, dense urban development can make continuous tracking more difficult. No air defense network can provide 100% uninterrupted coverage. Blind spots may form because of geography, deployment patterns, radar viewing angles, and the level of coordination between different systems. Nighttime attacks can further increase the burden on air defense units because visual identification becomes more difficult. If the attack is also launched from relatively close to the city, the available reaction time may become extremely limited. When a drone approaching a target is detected late, the defense system may have only a few seconds or minutes to respond. In some cases, even when systems are operating, it may not be possible to stop every incoming target. This is especially true during saturation attacks, in which a large number of aerial vehicles are launched simultaneously from different directions and temporarily overload the air defense network. Some reports claim that Moscow's air defense systems were active during the attack. However, the scale of the visible damage and the fact that explosions occurred in several locations suggests that the defense network was unable to stop at least some of the incoming drones. This does not necessarily mean that the systems failed completely. A more balanced assessment would be that the air defenses were partially operational but could not intercept every unmanned aerial vehicle. Since both sides in a war often exaggerate their own success while emphasizing the failures of the opposing side, such claims should be treated with caution. According to military experts, deep strike operations of this kind are not designed solely to cause physical damage. They also aim to place pressure on command and control mechanisms by forcing the opposing side to spread its air defense systems across a wider geographical area. It is extremely difficult for a country as large as Russia to protect every critical facility with the same level of air defense coverage. When protection is strengthened in one region, vulnerabilities may emerge elsewhere. Ukraine is believed to be attempting to identify and exploit these gaps through long-range attacks. Precision strikes against critical infrastructure are intended to disrupt the enemy's logistical continuity. The effects of an attack on a refinery, fuel depot, or logistics center are not limited to the fire and explosions that occurred that night. Repairing the facility, restarting production, increasing security, and deploying additional air defense systems to new locations all create significant financial and operational costs. These attacks are also considered important elements of a hybrid warfare strategy designed to generate economic pressure, psychological impact, and uncertainty in military planning. Since the early days of the war, the Ukrainian military has appeared to follow a technical and systematic approach in many of its operations. Ukraine has not focused only on directly destroying Russian resources. It has also attempted to eliminate the connections and support systems that make those resources usable. Fuel itself is a target, but so is the logistics network that transports it to the front. Ammunition is a target, but so are the facilities where it is stored and distributed. Unmanned aerial vehicles are a target, but so are the electronic components required for their production. This approach allows the impact of an attack to extend far beyond the facility that is directly struck. Disabling a single link in the logistics chain can indirectly affect the ability of frontline units to obtain fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and equipment. Even when a facility is not completely destroyed, forcing it to suspend operations temporarily can slow deliveries and require shipments to be redirected through other regions. This can create pressure on both the physical capabilities and the morale of Russian forces. The constant possibility that rear area facilities may be attacked creates pressure not only on soldiers at the front, but also on logistics personnel and the commanders responsible for defense planning. When a facility believed to be safe is struck from hundreds of kilometers away, it strengthens the perception that no location is completely secure. This perception may cause military units to act more cautiously during offensive and defensive operations, encourage resources to be dispersed, and slow down operational decision-making. Ukraine is believed to be using these attacks to create both material damage and mental and psychological pressure. Unmanned aerial vehicles were initially developed mainly for observation and reconnaissance. Over time, however, they began to be used extensively for attack missions as well. Advances in sensor technology, the wider availability of satellite communications, and the development of smaller munitions have transformed drones into some of the most important tools of modern warfare. Today, many unmanned aerial vehicles do more than collect imagery. They can identify targets, direct fire, and carry out strikes themselves. In military planning, drones are rarely used completely on their own. They usually operate in coordination with reconnaissance units, electronic warfare systems, satellite imagery, human intelligence, and other strike assets. Before a drone approaches a target area, information may be gathered from several different sources. The location of the target, the position of air defense systems, radar activity patterns, and possible approach routes can all be analyzed in advance. After the attack, another drone or satellite imagery may be used to assess the damage. This coordination supports real-time intelligence gathering, target confirmation, and the overall situational awareness of the operation. One of the greatest advantages of unmanned aerial vehicles is that they can operate in dangerous areas at a lower cost than manned aircraft and without risking the life of a pilot. Their small size and ability to fly at low altitude also make detection and interception more complicated for traditional air defense systems. In summary, modern drone systems are multi-component platforms that combine communications, sensors, navigation, mission planning, and munitions technology. Their operational success does not depend only on their technical capabilities. Mission planning, weather conditions, terrain, the electronic warfare environment, and the defensive capacity of the opposing side all directly influence the outcome. Even the most advanced drone can fail to reach its target because of a poor route, weak intelligence, or strong electronic jamming. On the other hand, a simpler system can strike an important target if it is supported by proper planning and accurate timing. Throughout the war, the Ukrainian military has significantly improved its capabilities in this field. By using unmanned aerial vehicles, it has managed to damage Russian units along the front line, as well as reserve depots, fuel facilities, and ammunition warehouses located near urban areas. In some attacks, relatively inexpensive drones have forced Russia to use far more expensive air defense missiles and systems. From the perspective of wartime economics, this has provided Ukraine with a certain advantage. Ukraine's continuous modification of unmanned aerial vehicles and adaptation of them for different missions has also attracted attention. Some models are developed for longer range, others for carrying larger explosive payloads, and others for reducing the chance of radar detection. Changes in attack routes, the use of different altitudes, and the targeting of multiple regions at the same time have made the threat facing Russian air defenses increasingly complex. Since 2022, Ukraine has conducted hundreds of separate long-range drone operations against Russian oil refineries, fuel depots, air bases, ammunition storage sites, and defense industry facilities. Some of these attacks were stopped before reaching their targets. Others caused limited damage, while some triggered major fires and forced facilities to suspend operations temporarily. As the number of attacks has increased, the security burden on Russia's rear regions has also grown. Russian officials stated that 7,347 Ukrainian drones were shot down in March 2026 alone. If accurate, this figure would demonstrate the extraordinary intensity of the attacks. When the drones that were not intercepted and the attacks that reached their targets are also taken into account, assessments that the Ukrainian military has used tens of thousands of unmanned aerial vehicles since the beginning of the year gain further credibility. The fact that attacks have occurred in multiple regions on the same day also supports this assessment. However, a significant portion of these figures is based directly on statements made by the warring parties. Independent verification is therefore not always possible. Russia may emphasize a high number of intercepted drones to demonstrate the effectiveness of its air defenses. Ukraine may highlight the drones that reached their targets and the damage they caused in order to present the operation as more successful. The true picture is often somewhere between the claims made by the two sides. For this reason, official statements should be assessed alongside satellite imagery, local footage, and independent investigations. In summary, Moscow and several surrounding areas were reportedly targeted by unmanned aerial vehicles throughout the night, while explosions were also reported in Tver and Vladimir. Initial footage and statements indicate that the attack was not minor and that at least some logistics facilities suffered material damage. Reports concerning the depots in Elektrostal and Kotovsk strengthen the possibility that the operation was directed against previously identified logistics targets. The absence of any confirmed reports of casualties so far offers some relief. However, it must be remembered that the incident is still very recent. It would be too early to state with certainty that there were no casualties before detailed inspections are completed, fires are fully brought under control, and search operations at the damaged facilities are concluded. The initial reports of material damage only are positive, but the possibility of new information emerging remains. The attack once again demonstrated that Ukraine's ability to conduct operations deep inside Russian territory continues to expand. The occurrence of explosions at several locations in and around Moscow during the same night shows that the war is no longer confined to the front line and that rear areas are increasingly becoming targets. Additional statements from Russian officials are expected in the coming hours, which may provide a clearer picture of the scale of the damage and the number of aerial vehicles used in the attack. To stay informed about the latest developments, military analysis of the Russia-Ukraine war, and the most recent movements on the battlefield, do not forget to subscribe to NLY Military and turn on notifications.